What is this?
At the end of 5 days, if you have not returned with Bernice, well, I think you get the idea, son. Godspeed.
So, Prisoners of the Ghostland is the first time I can recall seeing an actor quoted on their own poster. So, it's obviously something you're very passionate about. What was it that first drew you to this project?
Sono-san, Sono-san, Sono-san. And it's interesting how that quote landed where it did, because I actually made that statement in an interview before I'd even made the movie. I had met with Sono-san, and he showed me all his drawings of what the film would look like. And I thought, well, this is definitely new. And this is going to be a unique space for me to walk around in, his world. I call him the warlock of cinema. And that's what it was. You don't question Sono-san because it's his world. So whatever you wanted me to do, you want me to ride a silly bicycle? I'm riding the silly bicycle. I'll do whatever. You point me in the direction I'm going. And so my job was really to protect him and his vision as his actor. Now, I made some pretty wild movies. Mandy comes to mind.
How familiar were you with Sono-san's work beforehand?
I knew about Noriko's Dinner Table, and I knew about Love Exposure, and I knew that I wanted to work with him. I don't think he's like anybody else. If I had to compare him, which I don't normally do, maybe there's a kind of a Fellini-esque grandeur to Sono-san and his style, and also the performance style that he manages to encourage. I'm really impressed with Japanese movie stars. I mean, I look at Korieda's movies, like Father, Like Son, and I've been wanting to make a Japanese movie for a very long time. And I that's why, when Sono-san had his heart attack, which was, I was very worried about him, I said, let's not make the movie in Mexico, man. Let's just do it at home. Let me go to Japan. I'm a big believer in the genus loci. That's Latin for the genie of the place. I really think that places inspire and inform film performance. And so by going to Japan and filming in Japan, I was absorbing all of that. And it was like, I was trying to bring, I'm not Charles Bronson, but I wanted to kind of embrace my inner Charles Bronson in Once Upon a Time in the West. That to me is the coolest performance of all time. But so he knew that, Sono-san knew that, I wanted to bring that. So that's where the spaghetti Western element came in. And then Sono-san wanted to bring the samurai element in because that was very, very important to him. And so when Tak and I were rehearsing the fight scenes, he said, no, Sono-san wants you to be like a samurai. I said, but Tak, I don't have time, because we fight more like a boxer. I go, well, then let's do that. Let me embrace what I can do, Western pugilism, and have the boxer go up against the samurai. Now that to me is a mashup that's interesting, and I think it played out pretty well.
How do you go about balancing that Hollywood mythicism and that broad iconography with the personal and the intimate and the very volatile nuances, these sort of two big and small opposing forces?
I was very blessed and excited, galvanized really, to step into the Sono-san world. I had just done, I call him Archangel Michael, his movie Pig, which was a more quiet, meditative, haiku kind of approach to film performance. And man, I was ready to get back to my Western kabuki, and I was reading the script, and to me, it's music. So my instrument is my voice, my instrument is my body. How do I move? My vocal, was very clear to me. It's all by design. So it's like, okay, I'm reading the word testicle. Okay, now that would be a funny word to really hit out of the ballpark, pun intended, and like go for it, and give it more notes. So to me, it was just every day was a thrill. I was working with a filmmaker who allowed me to explore my more operatic approach. And I was working with a great actor in Sofia Boutella. Great. She's as good as it gets.
You mentioned Mr. Sono's health scare, and watching the film in that light is very interesting because the whole thing feels like this meditative death dream about cinema and about nuclear annihilation and about trying desperately to make time stand still. So what was it like playing in that space where even though you're having all this fun, but the film also has this, thoughtful proximity to like death and mortality?
It was, look, I mean, these are dangerous waters and I'm crossing it politically, but I grew up, my dad was a literature professor and he gave me John Hershey's Hiroshima to read when I was 10 years old. That's a hell of a book to read when you're 10. And our country has lost its moral ground a few times, but that was, in my opinion, was certainly one of them. Mm-hmm. And for me, when Sono-san said, I want real tears, I knew where he was going. I think there's even images of the mushroom cloud in the movie. I think the character Hiro was on some level trying through remorse, being an American. I added the line, I'm radioactive, meaning I think he felt he had to make amends in some tiny way. I think that it's not hard to get emotional if you think about what happened. And so that, in terms of nuance, was, I don't like the word acting so much because it implies lying. I always want to inform it with genuine emotion. And all I had to do was think about the book. There's still a lot of pain about that.
Speaking of pain, so when you do a film like this, when you do a film like Mandy, when you do a film like Pig, you're always tapping into this deep well of pain and anguish, whether it's physical or emotional, but you find something different every time, a very different avenue of expression for the same kind of emotion.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And when you pick roles like these, do you search for similarities to things you've done before, or search for differences or ways to make them different, or some kind of combination of the two?
It's a blessing that I've been able to work with people that have allowed me, and I think I've been lucky in that regard, that have allowed me to explore not only different genres, but different approach is to film performance. So I guess what I would say to answer your question more specifically is that I can't do a movie unless I have the emotional content in my own life, whatever I've been through, okay? I don't regret anything because it's all informed me. Mistakes I made, whatever it is, to be able to emotionally inform the performance. So I can design it in the macro, but in the micro, I got to bring it emotionally. And what I look for in scripts is that. So that Laurence Olivier said in his biography, acting is, what is acting but lying? And what is great acting but convincing lying? And as much as I love the man, I don't agree with him. I don't want to be a liar. That's why I prefer the word thespian or film or movie star even. I want to be able to bring something emotional, genuinely emotional, that you, as my friend in the audience, can connect with.
Okay, the film kind of loops back on cinema history, and you're also in a place in your career where you're kind of looping back in a way. You're playing a version of yourself in an upcoming movie. Yeah. You might be revisiting Face Off. So as you look back on your career, what place would you say Prisoners of the Ghostland occupies for you personally as a statement about Nick Cage?
I think it's a marvelous frame for where I've been trying to go in terms of what can be done with film performance, in terms of thinking outside the box a little, maybe being more intentionally operatic, more abstract, more surreal, more musical. I think that Sono-san really allowed me to embrace some of my more abstract dreams with what can be done with film performance.
Yeah, it's a completely wild time to watch. And there's that scene where I just rewatched it today because I saw the film back at Sundance. I wanted to rewatch the scene where you were kind of staring off into space and talking about all the people you harmed. And the chorus asks you, what do you see? And
see, you're tapping into something very crucial, I think, to the movie for Sono-san. And I protected him. I was like, man, you are releasing a Sono-san movie. Let me see, this cut is not Sono-san's cut. Let me see his cut. That's the movie I want to make. Go back to Sono-san, because that moment specifically is at the heart of the movie, which is, they try to, when I'm looking up, originally per the script, It was the children are looking back down at me from like kind of like heaven. And they put in some stupid dragon, like they didn't know what it was. I said, no, he's not looking at a dragon. He's looking at the ghosts of the children that got blown up, man. I mean, that's why he's emotional. He feels tremendous guilt about what happened. Maybe subconsciously, but I think that's where it was going.
I'm not